Hey there folks, welcome back to this video series on creating the Battleship game. In the last video I showed you a demo of the game running, and in this video we're going to go ahead and create the player game grid as well as the computer game grid, as well as the logic tables for the player game grid and the computer game grid. In order to do that, we're going to have to create a few more variables under my game settings and variables. We're going to create a variable called rows, and that will be 10. Another variable called columns, that will be to 10 as well, and we're going to call the cell size will be equal to 50. Alright, if we move down to our loading game variables, we're going to have the player game grid, which is going to go from 1 equal to 1, and then we're also going to have the player game logic, which will for now also be equal to 1. Then we're going to have the computer game grid, which for now will also be none, and we'll have the computer game logic, which for now will also be equal to none. Alright, once we've got the game grid and we've got logic, we need to go up and create the functions that will create those lists. So the first function we're going to create in my utility function section is going to be create game grid. We're going to pass it a few arguments. The first one will be rows, then it will be columns, then it will be cell size, and then it will be the position of the grid, where will the grid be placed on the screen. Alright, so the next thing we're going to go ahead now, we need to say, okay, so let's give it a description for this function. Creates a game grid with coordinates for each cell. I think that explains it quite well. So we're going to have our starting X position, which will be equal to our pos 0. We're going to have our starting Y position, which will be pos 1. And that's the kettle. I'll be back in a minute. Right. Sorry about that, just a cup of coffee. It's always necessary when Sorry about that, just needed to get a cup of coffee. It's always necessary when you're doing these things. We're busy creating the coordinates game grid. Okay, so we've got our starting X position, we've got our starting our coordinate grid list, which is going to be empty for now. We're going to run a for loop, so for row in range rows. Alright, we're going to have our starting X position. Right. So row X is equal to an empty list, then for my column in range calls. So yeah, that's where it becomes interesting. We're going to have our row X dot append. Start X dot Y position. Once that's been appended, we then want to increase our starting Y position by the cell size. Okay, so once that for loop is done, we're then going to break out of that for loop, break into the rows for loop, and in the rows for loop, first we're going to do is we're going to append that row X list. Append row X. Right. Then we are going to reset the position of our X, which is going to be equal to 0, and then our starting Y position will then be increased by our cell size. Right. Once we break out the for row loop, we will then have a table of X's and Y's. Okay, we'll have a list of lists. A list of lists. Yeah, that's fun to say. Then we once we've done that, we're going to come down to our player game logic, and we want to say create game calls cell size, and then the position of the player character is going to start at X coordinate of 50, Y coordinate of 50. Character is going to say create game grid rows columns cell size. That position is actually going to be if I have it right. There's a little bit of a trick to this one. So we're going to say the X position is going to be my screen width. Screen width minus the screen width minus my number of rows minus my rows multiplied by my cell size. Okay. Alright, and then the Y position will be 50. Alright, what we'll do just to check that that's working quickly, we'll quickly for in Pygame that, and then for the in computer game grid that. So what we should see now is the two nests, listed nests, two nested lists. Okay, so anyway, so that's the game, it's fine, but we see on the screen here, so we've got our X and Y. So the first thing you'll notice when you look at our list of lists. So the first row seems to be fine. The first cell will start at 50-50, then at 5100, which is the Y coordinate. That's not right. It should be, this X should be changing, not the Y. And the second thing we notice is when we go to the second row, our Y coordinate is suddenly 600, which is a problem. So we need to correct that quickly in our function. Should be the one that's increasing. So that's where we're going wrong with this one. So if we go backwards, we'll see we've got that mixed up. That's where we went wrong. So our start X was 0. So in the first column, we want our starting X, our X position to increase by 50. And what comes down, that's what we wanted. We got 50, 50, 150, 150 at 50, 200 at 50, starting at 50 always. So that's the columns going across the screen, and then the second one is my rows going down the screen. Player grid seems to be correct. The computer grid, for some reason, starts at 760, which is a bit weird. But nonetheless, that's still fine. So we're happy with those two grids running correctly. The next thing we're going to do now is we need to create the logic grid, Pygame logic. So we're just going to add another function here, diff function, diff create, let's just call it game logic. Right, and under logic grid, we're going to give it the number of rows again, we're going to give it the number of columns again, give it the number of rows, give it the number of columns. For now, that's all we need to put on there. Later on we'll come back, I think we'll amend this function again, but update, let's call it update game logic. Update game logic. Okay. So for row in range rows, for row in range rows, so we'll say for row in range rows, before we go on, let's give it a commentary description. Creates game, let's say updates game grid logic, spaces, x's, ships. Okay, once we've got that, now we know what we want to do. We've got our game logic equal to our empty list for row in range rows. So row X is equal to empty list for col in range cols that loop's done, we want to return game logic. Okay, so that's going to be update the game. That's where we're going to update the game logic. We're going to say for that Pygame grid. Let's say Pygame logic and C computer logic. So if we run this again, we should see a grid of spaces. Oh, what's going on there for? Okay, Pygame logic. Non-type object is not a triple O because we're not calling the function. We're going to say correct update logic with rows and calls arguments to pass to it. We can just copy and paste that to our computer game grid. And if we run it now, and we close the game screen, you'll see that we have a grid. It's actually two grids. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows, and then there's another second 10 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this would be the computer grid, and this would be the player grid. Let's just create a function for that because we're going to be making use of that later on to check the position of our ships. Let's just create a function that will automatically print that out. Print game logic. And we will pass it. We're not going to pass it anything because when we call it, we want it to print both grids out. Prints to the terminal the game logic. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just call out print the hash, say player grid, comma, and then we're going to justify it center, center J. Yeah, you see, but it's up there. Dot center. Alright. The width will be let's make it 50, and the filler will be hashtags. Okay. Alright. Then we will for in Pygame logic print. Right. Then underneath that we print computer grid dot center 50 and hashtags. There's the pillar. Alright. And for the C logic print that. It's not going to return anything because we just want this function to print out our two game logics. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to call this function directly underneath our two variables. It's a tester for later, but let's just call it create it. Print game logic. So when you run the script, you should see that's what we want to see. So we have the player grid, we have the computer grid. Simple enough, straightforward. Let's just print that game grid to the screen. So I'm going to create another function at the bottom of my utility functions section. I'm going to call it if update game screen. Alright. And do that, pass a variable argument called window under the game screen. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this, and our main game loop, we're going to take this Pygame.display.update, we're going to take it out, and we're going to put it inside this function. Right. Now come back to our main game loop, we need to include that function. So update game screen. The argument is game screen. Big game screen. We go. Alright. What we want to do now is we basically want to print the grid to the screen. We want it to display on the game screen. So above my print game logic, I want to just include it there. We're going to say diff show grid. Show grid screen. Right, and then we're going to pass it to the window. And P, the player grid, and the computer grid. Alright. And what we're going to go ahead with now, draws the player and computer grids to the screen. This function is straightforward. We're just going to draw rectangles to the screen. So we're going to go for item. We still need to include our other thing we're going to need to include is our cell size. Right. So for that, for item in for I in player grid. Let's go for row in player grid. For column in row. So now we're going to go to the first row of the player grid, and then the next row will be for each item in that row. Okay, so for column in row. Remember now we're working with the coordinates, so we're going to be using grid coordinates. Straightforward, we're going to go with Pygame draw.rect. So we just want to draw a rectangle on the screen, we're going to draw it to the window. The color, we're going to go with 255, which is white. And then the rectangle, which will be, so the X position will be column 0, Y position will be column 1, and then the width of the rectangle will be column 0 multiplied by cell size. Plus cell size. And then the height of it will be column 1 plus cell size. Close that off. There's our rectangle. The width of the rectangle will be 1. Okay. So I don't want to type this out. So what I'm going to go with is I'm going to game grids is equal to list the player grid, computer grid. Okay, straightforward. We need to add one loop here for grid in game grids. Okay, just take this out and add it one more time. Alright. That doesn't need to return anything because it's just drawing to the screen, but we do need to call this function. We're going to call it here. We're going to say call show grid on screen. And the window will be a window. Cell size will be cell size. Pygame grid, Cgame grid, and that'll be it. One more thing before we run this, we just have to say as our window dot fill with 0, 0, 0. Fill the screen with black. Alright. So what should happen now is we should be getting 2 game grids on the screen. I wonder what just happened there. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go back. Let's have a look at this one more time. Right, only 2 steps of copy later, what we are doing, and this is where it's going wrong, is when we are drawing our rectangle to the screen, we are choosing our X coordinate and our Y coordinate, so that's the top left of the rectangle. The problem is when we do the width, we're taking our width, which is, say, the first grid would be 50, and we're adding the cell size to it. So the first one is 50, then plus 50. So that now makes the width 100. And then the same with the column. Now what happens is in the following grid, our column Y is now 0. So we've increased the size of our rectangles through each iteration of the loop. And to fix that, we just have to take out that. If I run this now, we have one grid on the screen. And if we add the computer grid, we should have 2 grids displayed on the screen. We still have one. Why is the computer grid not showing? I saw a little meme the other day of an image, which was the best one. It's like, yes, it's a different era. Isn't that true? Huh? It's a different era. Let's just see what are the coordinates for my computer player. Okay, we're going to go back up to the top. So here's the coordinates for my computer player. 760, 760, that's all correct. Alright, so now my question is, why? Oh my gosh. Okay, so there. Do you see there? We are calling from the player grid and not the game grids. So for row in grid, now we have the 2 grids. Computer grid, player grid. Computer grid, player grid. Huh. I think that's enough for today before I break something. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you in the next one. If you haven't pulled out your hair by that time, like I might do. Let's just, before we go, remove that, and remove that. Don't need that. You can keep printing the game logic, and that's fine. I don't update the game screen. There's just some sweet little comments here. Draws Later on, we're obviously going to put in an image which is going to cover this grids. We can take it out and leave that function in. It doesn't matter. We'll see later on. Alright, we've created 4 functions in this one. I think that's enough for this video. See you later. Bye bye.